Tim Powell here from AuditionsUp.com, and these are my top 10 self-tape tech tips. Go ahead, say that 3 times. You can also download a free PDF of Tim's top 10 self-tape tech tips by visiting AuditionsUp.com. And here we go. Tip number 1. Read submission requirements carefully. There are no standards for file naming conventions, slate requirements, file size restrictions, etc. Every CD's office has different requirements. Assume nothing. For example, all casting directors have different taping instructions. Some of them very detailed, some not so much. What information they're looking for in the slate. And especially look at how they want the file named. Remember, there are no standards for file naming. Some casting directors will refuse to look at an audition unless it is named correctly. Also look for any special notes on how they want it framed, any notes on what kind of performance they're looking for, and what kind of tone. You also want to look for who's working on this, who the executive producers are. Check out work by the writer. You get the idea. Do a little sleuthing. It can only make your audition better. Look for hard deadlines. Pay careful attention to that. More on that in tip number 10. Look for the start date. Look at where it's being shot. Some casting directors will only accept auditions from people who will agree to work as a local hire. If that's the case, you don't want to waste your time doing that audition, unless you can present yourself in that market as a local hire. Some CDs don't want any special effects. Simple cuts usually suffice. Always look to see what their file size restrictions are. Better quality means larger files. Some casting directors don't want anything over 100 megabytes. That's fairly reasonable. You might be able to slip in a few megabytes over their limit, but why take that chance? Get the file underneath their file size limit. If you need to, use something like Handbrake to reduce the size of the file after editing. Handbrake is not an editing program. Handbrake just reduces the file size after editing. It's open source, multi-platform, and it's free. You may have to reduce the quality of your file to meet those restrictions, but sometimes that's the price you have to pay. Number 2. Always shoot in landscape mode. That's horizontal. There are exceptions. The only time you would shoot in portrait, vertical mode, is when you're asked for a full body shot as part of the slate. Number 3. Always use a solid color background. A cluttered or multicolored background can distract from showcasing the talent in the scene. Light to medium shades of blue and gray are most readily acceptable. Avoid solid white or solid black, or that dark royal blue, or either of the chroma key blues or greens. You may be a wizard with a green screen, but now is not the time to showcase that. Never use yellow. Everybody looks bad on yellow. If you can, paint a wall or use a backdrop. I use number 41 marine blue seamless paper, but for years I used a $5 bedsheet that I bought at Ross. Number 4. Use professional lighting. Soft diffused lighting is ideal. It needn't be expensive, but soft light and a 3-point lighting configuration is best. You can use any kind of lighting, softboxes, LED panels, china globes. Sometimes the light from a window and the light from a floor lamp might work fine. Sometimes you can do it with reflection, off a wall or a bounce card of some kind. In the workshops I do for self-taping solutions for actors, I go over 3-point lighting in great detail, but it's really pretty simple. There's a short video you can go see on Vimeo, number 237035364, titled Self-Tape Tech Tip 12345. Check it out. Number 5. Isolate the actor's voice. Use a shotgun mic or a lavalier to separate the actor from the reader. Use the 50% rule. The reader should only be half the volume of the actor. Number 6. Treat your self-tape like an actual audition. Do your homework. Be off book and ready to go. Do each scene in a complete take. Don't edit pieces of scenes together to make it a complete scene. They want to see that you can do it right from the beginning all the way through. Number 7. Use a professional reader. Another actor is preferred. Timing is critical in this work, and a practiced pro is a much better choice than an untested amateur. Number 8. Don't enter or exit the frame. Don't use an empty screen as your first thumbnail, or fade up from black at the beginning of your tape. Treat your audition as if you had already entered, hit your mark, and they just cut to your close-up. To make an entrance, you can pivot or turn into position to give the effect that you've just entered. You can also take a step closer to the camera at the top of the scene, which gives the same effect as entering, without actually having to come into the frame from outside. The reverse technique works for exits. Number 9. end the reading with a solid finish. One solid beat is a much better choice than a diffused focus at the end of your scene. If you look straight forward, then off to the side, then down to the floor, and then back up again, it diffuses the scene, kind of like blowing up a balloon and then letting it go, and it goes all over the end. You don't want that. Make a single strong choice for ending your scene and stick to it. Take your last look and hold it for a few seconds to give yourself a good place to cut. I'd say 3 to 5 seconds. And by the way, that's a good idea to do when you're actually working. Editors will love you. That's one way to make sure you don't end up on the cutting room floor. One solid beat beats 5 half beats every time. Number 10. Get your audition in as soon as possible. Just because the deadline is several days away, it doesn't mean you can drag your feet. Once they find what they're looking for, they stop looking. If your upload is one of 3,500 submitted, and that's pretty common, it makes more sense to be number 12, not number 1,200. Take a look at this calendar. Say you get an audition notice on Sunday. Perfect. If you can get off book, get it taped, and get it uploaded on Sunday, that's absolutely perfect, because they're waiting for these to come in and they're going to start watching them as soon as they get them. If you get it in on Monday, that's great. If you get it in on Tuesday, it's probably still good. Wednesday might still be okay, especially if they didn't start looking at them until Monday. But if you wait till Thursday, not so good. By Friday, it's pretty bad. If they get submissions of 3,000 to 3,500, which really isn't that uncommon, they don't have time to look at more than maybe 500 of them before they make their choices on who they're going to call back. Think about that. And you didn't get yours in till the day before the deadline, it may not even be seen. And if you don't get it in until the day of the deadline, forget about it. Sure, there are exceptions. Some casting directors have the time to look at every audition that's submitted. They're often in a hurry, and once they see what they're looking for and it gets approved, they're moving on to casting the next character. So, number 1, read submission requirements carefully. Number 2, always shoot in landscape mode. The only time you might shoot in portrait mode, that vertical shot that most people use nowadays, is when you're doing a full body slate. Number 3, always use a solid color background. Number 4, use professional lighting. Number 5, isolate the actor's voice from the reader's voice. Number 6, an audition is an audition is an audition. Treat it like one. Number 7, you may love your mom, but she might be a terrible reader. Use a professional reader. Number 8, don't enter or exit the frame. Number 9, always end your audition with a solid finish. Leave a few beats in that final moment, so you'll have some choices on where to cut it. Number 10, get your audition in as soon as possible. The sooner you get it in, the sooner they'll look at it, because once they find what they want, they're done. For more information on self-tape tech solutions, come visit auditionsup.com.